Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. So I hope and pray everyone has reached the month of Ramadan safely. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan has just begun last night, technically. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this the most beneficial Ramadan we've ever experienced in our lives. I just want to give a few reminders about how to start Ramadan strong. How can we make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing? How can we make sure that this is going to be the best Ramadan that we've ever had, that we've ever experienced? Well, first of all, I think it's really important, as we've reflected last week on the importance of fasting and to remind ourselves why we're fasting, is to just remember that we're always fasting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the first and most important thing we should remind ourselves. And we should always remind ourselves that this Ramadan is the month of the Quran. So try to do something with the Quran as much as possible. Try to recite it as much as possible. Try to read the translation. Try to play a Quran board game. Try to, maybe learn some Arabic words that are in the Quran. Try to read books of tafsir about the Quran. Read some other books about the Quran or about Islam which mention the Quran. So somehow incorporate Quran in your life in some way, shape, or form, in some type of capacity. That's the first thing. The second thing is that while we're fasting, many people have an understanding of what fasting is about. But we also have to remember that we need to control our words. We need to be careful what we say. Even though most of us were kind of stuck at home or we are working from home, maybe not traveling so much, maybe not interacting with people so much, we still have to be careful. Maybe it's a little bit easier because we're not interacting with so many people. Perhaps that's part of the wisdom behind why Allah is testing us in this way. But at the same time, we need to understand that we need to be careful of the words that come out of our mouth. Because, you can avoid food, you can avoid drink, then you can also check your words. Do you gossip? Do you use foul language? Right? One study, recent study showed that the average American uses 80 to 90 swear words or foul words, cuss words per day. I mean, that's a lot of bad language. And it's become common with people. And one of the reasons why people do it, it's two main reasons why people use bad language. One of them is because they're constantly surrounded by it. Either their friends or their classmates or their colleagues at work, they're constantly using foul language. So it automatically just goes into the mind, it goes into the heart, and whatever's in the heart automatically starts to come out on the tongue. If you watch a lot of movies which have bad language, if you listen to songs which have bad language, it's going to come out on your tongue. You need to control this, because every time you're using that language while you're fasting, you should ask yourself, where's the fasting, right? Yeah, you're giving up food, you're giving up drink, you're giving up intimacy. What about the foul language? What about the bad language? What about the gossiping? What about the backbiting? What about the lying? All of that needs to go as well. And the second reason why people use bad language is due to the emotional release, right? Even if you use it in your mind, if you cuss someone out in your mind, there's this emotional release where you're just so angry, you're so upset at someone, you start using the most despicable language towards that person because of your hatred towards them, because of what they've done to you, because of how you're feeling about them. And you have to remember something. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in an authentic hadith narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, he said, whoever does not leave wrong speech and acting upon it, Allah has no need that they leave their food and drink. You just think about that. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, if you're not going to control your tongue, then Allah doesn't need you to give up your food and your drink. Right? First of all, Allah doesn't need you to give it up anyways. Right? You're fasting for yourself to get you closer to Allah. Allah doesn't need your fasting. You need your fasting. I need my fasting. But he's emphasizing the point, if you're not going to control your tongue, then what are you doing? Right? Where's the fasting? That's what he's saying. This is a very authentic hadith. We need to understand that. So the emotional release, you're like, but I need to get my frustration out against this person. The emotional release is not worth it. It's not worth invalidating your entire fast. I guarantee you. All that, the pangs of hunger you're going through, the thirst, the dry mouth, the dry throat, and the dry mouth that you're going through, it's not worth it. It's not worth having that invalidated because you're going to start using some bad language. So discipline yourself. Stop using that language. You can reward yourself maybe. Every time you don't use foul language, for a day, you don't say one bad word in the day, reward yourself with, I don't know, some sweet or some cookie or something like that. Or if that doesn't work, it's not sufficient for you, punish yourself. Every time you say a bad word, you're going to go put $100 in the masjid box as a donation, and since there's no box, since the masjid is closed, you can just donate online. That'll be your penalty. We'll keep on, throwing that out. Every time you say a bad word, you're going to have to penalize yourself, every time you say something. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir. Whoever truly believes in Allah in the last day, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. So they should either say something good or they should be quiet. Simple as that. Either say something good or be quiet. There's no third option for you. This is what you have to do. And when we are controlling our tongue while we're fasting, we need to also control our eyes. It's very important to control our eyes, to control our gaze, the things that we look at. Now, maybe when we go out, we're not able to go out. Most people are not going to the beach. Most people are not, seeing that many people. But one of the biggest dangers of the gaze, especially for people who are stuck at home, is the movies that you watch. When you look at the scenes when you see the scenes that you're looking at in movies and in television shows and those type of things, what ends up happening, right? What ends up happening is there's oftentimes a lot of scenes that you should not be looking at as a person, and you definitely should not be looking at as a Muslim. So if there's anything that's, getting your desire quenched, you have to be careful. The same way that, you resist food, right? You have to resist the temptation to be looking at something which is haram. It's forbidden in the sight of Allah, because it's good for you to avoid that, right? So the water is going to call you. You're going to see the water and you're fasting and you're like, the water is coming and saying like, drink me, and you stop and you're like, nope, 4 hours left of fasting. Sorry, cup of water. You're going to have to wait, right? And the war continues on and off for those hours, and you just have to resist. But it's the same thing when you're flipping through which movie or which show to watch, or you're driving down the street, there's some billboards or there's some, some tempting, good-looking people, but lightly clad, lightly dressed people. It's very easy to lose yourself and just take a glance and take a look, and you need to avert your sight. You need to not look. You need to stay away, and you have to resist. And you have to say, for men, that's not my wife, right? Or for men who are not married, you know what? Nope, I can't look right now until I'm married. For women, that's not my husband, or that's not my future husband, Or if you're on the internet, I gotta close my browser. I can have that in Jannah, inshallah. And that's the way you're gonna get to Jannah. So we have to look away. The same way that you divert your thoughts and your attention away from food and drink in Ramadan, make sure to divert your gaze, your sight, your eyes away from something that can potentially ruin your akhirah, something that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last thing I'll conclude with is, don't focus so much on food in the month of Ramadan. One of the problems that a lot of people have is we give up food when we're fasting, right? But then people tend to focus on it even more in Ramadan, try to outdo themselves and cook the greatest things. And, that's all nice. There's this culture of making the best food in Ramadan. That is nice, and it's good for the family, and the family remembers that. But don't overdo it so much, right? Don't overcook variety of meals. Don't overly spend too much time doing that. Otherwise, you're missing out on your worship, especially maybe women who are, cooking inside the kitchen. Some men cook as well, but mostly women will be doing the cooking. They may end up spending so much time that they don't get to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. right? They don't get to read as much Quran as they should have or they wanted to. So that becomes a big problem, right? So don't overdo it, right? Everyone who's fasted before, they know that even when you break your fast, you cannot eat as much as you think you can eat, right? Especially when you break your fast, most people, they cannot even eat as much as they normally would eat. For some reason, your stomach just gets full quickly, right? And sometimes people, they stuff themselves, they focus so much on food, they stuff themselves so much with food, they can't even stand for Isha prayer. They cannot stand properly for Taraweeh prayer, right? So don't overdo it when it comes to food. These are just some reminders for myself and for all of you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a blessed Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us maintain the momentum throughout the month of Ramadan. May Allah bless you and bless your families. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nastaghfirukallah wa natubu ilayk.